So the first lesson I want to share with you is the importance of choosing a domain name service provider and hosting provider who offers good support. And I'd like to do this by using the first few domains I bought as examples. So the first domain I bought was thisistheplace.info. Now, I made a few mistakes with this domain, but I bought this, and I'll tell you about that later, but I bought this to create my own domain email address because I was preparing to move for my job, and I was currently using the cable provider's free domain or email. So I wanted to have an email I could keep for life, but that's another story. So I bought this one, but the real lesson comes from the next one I bought. And I bought this. This is Moses from the Bible, his wife's name. So I bought this domain because I wanted to create an online bookstore. So I did a ton of research about shopping carts, and I picked one which is Sam's Cart, and it's still a popular shopping cart today. And then I researched all the different domain providers at the time and hosting providers, and I tend to go overboard on research and trying to figure everything out. So I read all these different sites, and I picked the one that everybody was recommending, the domain provider and hosting provider, and I signed up. I bought my domain, and before I bought the domain and the hosting, though, I had called their support and asked if they could install this shopping cart software, and they said they could. So I went ahead and bought the domain and the hosting, and they installed the software, but unfortunately it didn't work for some reason. I don't know why, but I don't think it was the software because there were many sites using it at the time, and it was very popular. And anyway, so then after I got a hold of support like once or twice, then I could never reach anybody on the phone again. It would just ring and I'd be on hold. I think I waited like 2 hours at one point for them to come online. They never did. So basically I was stuck with 2 years of a domain and 2 years of hosting that I couldn't use. And thinking back, I probably should have asked for a refund, but I didn't, and so I was basically just stuck with it. Now, at the time, I was bootstrapping this business, and I didn't have any additional money at the time to hire an IT tech or someone who could figure out how to fix this. And this was at a time before Fiverr was created, and all the other online sites like Fiverr were available, so you could hire somebody at bootstrapping prices that could have fixed this pretty easily. So anyway, I was just stuck with these services I couldn't use. So a few years later, in 2006, I contacted a company and I bought their software. It was a real estate website software to create a real estate site, and I had gotten transferred to another country for my job. So this website was targeting English-speaking people in this other country who were looking for housing. So I partnered with a local real estate person, and we got the site working, and it was going good. And the thing was, because I went through this company, if I had a question on how to do something, I was able to email or call them and get everything working, and they did all the branding for me. So in this way, unlike the first company with Sephora.com, with this one I was able to get everything working and launched, and it was going good. But unfortunately, I got transferred back to the States sooner than I expected. So this little business really never took off. like I had wanted it to. So, but, oops. So this is, at this point I had Gmail. So Gmail at the time was beta. You had to get an invite from somebody actually to join Gmail. So I had been able to join Gmail, and I forwarded my domain email to my Gmail account. So if you look here, this first circled part with the red oval around it, you may not be able to read this, but I made up a wildcard address, market grabber at thisistheplace.info. So I was using my domain email to communicate, and it was working good. And so this company, alphaplex.inc, they still exist. And later on, I'll talk about the importance of hiring a good company if you are going to work with a company to do your online business portion for you. But the thing I wanted to show here was with the branding and the software and everything in this red circle on the right. So, and I blew it up here in the yellow rectangle on the bottom. So it was $1,963 for me to get the software, access to the software, and for them to help me brand it and get everything working. So that was the difference for me getting a company working and not getting it working. We're talking, over $1,000, so that I had the technical support so that I could make this work. So, and then it was like $29 a month for the hosting, almost 30 there. So, so this was my next experience, and then after that experience, I kept checking around and using different domain service providers for different projects, and I found one that had multi-tier phone system support. So what do I mean by multi-tier phone system support? Well, when I called them, they always answered the phone. Of course, you could wait a while sometimes, but and if they couldn't, the person who answered the phone couldn't answer my question, they would forward it to somebody who was up higher in the chain, and then they would answer for me. So with this, I was able to get other things done and other projects done, which was very helpful. So it was kind of like having my own IT department in a sense. But of course, to make this work, you need to have some knowledge of IT. And with Google now, you're able to you can look up how to do most things, and then for the few things that you can't figure out, then you can call support and they'll walk you through it. So for me, this was the key where I start being successful without having to pay thousands of dollars for that kind of support I needed to get things working. Of course, you do pay a little bit more for these services than you do for some of the other discount ones. So if somebody has their own IT department, or they have a webmaster that can do all this stuff for them, then you can go with the less expensive domain service providers and hosting providers that don't provide as much support. But for those who are bootstrapping it, like I've done with most of my businesses, having somebody you can call and actually get answers from, that's just worth every single penny that you're going to pay a little bit extra for those domain names and the other services. So, for example, recently I'm still using this same services and support that I discovered back then, And so I recently had to reconfigure my email. That's another story, but what I had to do was set it up on cPanel temporarily. And so I called the support line, and they walked me through. They told me how to create the MX record I needed to make my email work on cPanel. Now, if you don't know what MX record and cPanel means, that doesn't matter, because if you were calling the support line and you kind of knew what you were doing, they would have walked you through everything that needed to be done. So, for those bootstrapping a new business, I believe this, the extra cost is well worth any extra you're going to pay for domain names or hosting and other services that go along with creating an online presence for your business. And as I showed with my second venture there, to get this kind of support from a private company can cost probably nowadays upwards of thousands of dollars, like it did for me. Since these experiences with my first 3 domain names, and I've tried probably at least a dozen or more domain name service providers, and there's also people that just do websites. So you can buy the domain, and then they have website builders that you can build your website with, and other hosting providers. So I've tried all these, and the thing I found is that the level of support is really, really important, and it varies very, very greatly between all these different providers. Now, they're all good, but it all depends on your experience and what kind of support you need. So stay with me, and I'm going to tell you how you can get the same phone support like I'm using for myself at a discount price instead of paying the full price like I was at first.